we're going to call the meeting to order. If everyone would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone to the October meeting of the Irondequoit Zoning Board of Appeals. Before we get underway, there's a few administrative matters I need to take care of. First, I will call to your attention that the fire exit is located to your left. In the event of a fire, you will be notified by an announcement. If so notified, please move in a calm and orderly fashion to the exit. Do not use the elevator. Use either the north or the south stairs to leave the building. Our meetings are recorded. Tonight, it's being done by Carrie, apparently, for the purposes of a record and minutes. So when you come to the podium, please identify yourself each time that you come up there. Speak clearly into the microphone. Identify yourself with your name and your address. We follow the items on the agenda in the order that they appear. There are extra copies of the agenda on the table next to the door. The way we work it is that the case will be called. The applicant or the applicant's representative should come to the podium, identify themselves, state their address, pause, raise their right hand to be sworn, and then after being sworn, present their case. During the presentation of the applicant's case, the members of the board may ask questions or engage in discussion. Once that process is complete, the case will then be open to public input. Anyone wishing to speak to the board during the public input portion should come to the podium, identify themselves along with your address. Public input does not get sworn, and direct any questions or comments you have to the board, not to the applicant or their representative. We have 3 categories of public input that have been identified. The first category is those speaking in favor of the application. The next category is those speaking in opposition to the application. And the third category are those who wish to identify some issue that pertains to the application but have no particular interest one way or the other in the application itself. Once all public input has been completed, the applicant or their representative is given an opportunity to respond, and then the case is closed. And we continue on to the next case. Once all the cases have been heard, the board will take a short recess. Then we will come back and we deliberate the cases in the order they appear on the agenda and for which an applicant remains present. So if the first applicant has left, but the second applicant is present, we would take the second case first. Then we would go down the line, and then of all the applicants that are present, and then come back to the top and take care of the cases for those who are no longer present. During this portion of the meeting, no further input is allowed unless it's directly requested by a member of the board. You're welcome to stay and listen. If you don't want to stay, but you want to know what the outcome was, you can watch it on cable. I think we're 1301 now, something like that. Or you can...
Either 1301 or 1302.
Okay, or you can call in to the town tomorrow to the Planning and Zoning Department, and they will be glad to tell you what we decided with respect to any case that you have an interest in. So, we can call our first case at this point.
Thank you. The first case is ZB 2021-10-1. Upon the matter of request by Ryan Domino for an area variance to install a 6-foot-high side yard fencing exceeding maximum permitted height on premises 1786 Portland Avenue in an R1 residential district.
Ryan Domino, 1786 Portland Avenue.
Do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically I want to put up a 6-foot fence around the entirety of my house. Just moved in a couple weeks ago. The house is actually built by my grandparents, so they ended up selling it to a cousin of mine, which they ended up moving to Florida, so I ended up purchasing the house. I've been I want to keep the, the visualization of the property up to par, so I think having a 6-foot fence around the entirety of it would be more aesthetically pleasing.
And if the orientation was as the house is oriented to Ridgeport instead of the town's corner lot ordinance, which says the smaller side is the front, you wouldn't be here, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I thought. You're far from the first, and I'm sure won't be the last to have the same problem and come with the same request. So you basically want to put a 6-foot fence around what is, for all intents and purposes, your backyard that the town says is your side yard.
Correct.
Okay. Anybody on the board have any questions or comments for Mr. Domino?
And that's going now on the Portland Avenue side where the split rail fence is right now?
Could you
Where the
repeat
split
that?
rail fence is, that's coming down and that's where you're gonna begin?
Correct.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
Okay. We'll open the case up to public input. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Speak right up. Come right up.
Hello, my name is Clotilda Barada Platino. I bought the house in '73 under the name of Barada. Now I'm Platino because I got married. And I'm 1776 Portland Avenue. So his house is right next to mine. Part of that fence would come right next to mine. And I have no objections. I don't see anything aesthetically unpleasing about it. And I'm fine with it.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wish to speak in favor of the application? Anyone here who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Anyone who'd like to talk to us about fences, corner lots, and how they all come together or don't? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing with respect to this case and move on to the next case on our agenda.
Case ZB 2021-10-2, upon the matter of request by Steve and Janice Barone for an area variance to construct a front porch with less than required front setback on premises 4 Perigo Street in an R2 residential district.
I'm Steve Barone. I live at 4 Perigo Street.
I'm Janice Barone. I live at 4 Perigo Street.
You raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. And again, this is a situation that's brought on by it being a corner lot?
Yes.
Because if it wasn't a corner lot, you wouldn't need to be here, right?
Correct.
Where have I heard that before? And what you essentially want to do, if I understand you correctly, is replace what's already there because it's been there so long that it's falling apart and not safe to use anymore. Is that about it?
It is dilapidated, falling apart, and it's we're just going 4 by 4 bigger than what it is.
3 feet over the, for
3
the
feet
variance.
over the variance.
Okay.
And we do have 2 letters from neighbors. You need to see those.
If you could bring them up and I'll read them into the record so that we have a record of that. Thank you. First letter is from Frank and Patricia LaPlaca at 16 Perigo Street, indicating they have no issues with granting them the variance. And then Margaret Rovatelli from 107 Culverton Drive, who indicates that she has no issues with granting the variance.
I also have a picture if you'd like to see of what we're doing to replace it, if you'd like to see it.
I think that's the picture that was submitted with your application, right?
Yes,
Looked very nice.
thank you.
Anybody have any questions or comments for the Barones? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing with respect to, or no, we'll open, I'm sorry. We will open it to public input. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this application? Anyone here who would like to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone who'd like to talk to us about sitting decks and corner lots and how they come together or don't under the ordinance? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing with respect to this application.
Case ZB 2021-10-3. Upon the matter of request by Timothy Burns for revised area variances to maintain an existing front yard fence exceeding maximum permitted height, linear footage, and non-conforming fence type on premises 8 Colwood Drive in an R1 residential district.
Hi, my name's Tim Burns. I live at 8 Colwood Drive.
Do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Before we get underway, I have a question that's been troubling me ever since I saw this application. What was unclear about the variance we granted to you almost 3 years ago?
Well, the original variance that was granted was for a 6-foot fence. And so since then, I've changed my mind and I wanted to go with a 4-foot fence.
Well, the original variance, as I recall it, and I recall the discussion, I tried to look it up to refresh my recollection, but I recall it pretty well. We had quite an extensive discussion that night. We knew what you wanted. You wanted to put the fence where it is now. We told you you couldn't do that. We told you where you could put the fence. And we gave you the option of going to a 6-foot fence instead of a 4-foot fence to give you more of the privacy that you were seeking. So we went and we compromised with you in that respect. You waited 2.5 years and then went out and put what you wanted in instead of what we had told you you could have. So my question to you is, if we grant you this variance, what do we need this board for? What do we need a zoning ordinance for?
Okay, so back then, again, that layout that I submitted was for a 6-foot fence all the way around. That night, I never entered a 4-foot fence into that conversation. So what I did was, back when I filed for this building permit, because again, I did a new layout, and I presented it for a building permit. At that time, I was permitted the building permit, and off that building permit, I had the fence installed. And it spells it right out. It's a 4-foot fence, and I showed exactly on the layout where that fence was gonna go. I know that there was a ruling back in 2018, but again, that was based on a 6-foot fence, and I didn't go with the 6-foot fence.
So why didn't you come back here and say, I've changed my mind? I want to go with a 4-foot
You know,
fence.
honestly, because that first time I was here, that was a learning experience for me. Because again,
Apparently not.
if you have a corner lot, there's a whole new set of rules for corner lots.
There are, and we went over those.
So again, just because I didn't install it right then, doesn't mean that I can't go in the future and then ask for a 4-foot fence and a 6-foot off that.
Agreed, but that's not what you did.
Oh, that's exactly what I did.
No, it's not. What you did was you put it in, not along the lines that we had approved, and now you're asking us to say, that's okay, that doesn't matter.
So then, I do a new layout, I submit the layout. What's the sense of getting a building permit and having that building permit signed off by the town saying it's okay to install it exactly how I laid it out? What's the sense of doing that then?
I can't speak to why you were given a building permit to put in something that didn't comport with the variance that we granted you.
But that's.
But you knew what we had granted you, you knew the discussions that we'd had, and you went ahead and did what you wanted anyway.
No.
Excuse
Well-
me, Chairman, I'd like to point out that the building permit stated directly that the subject to the 6-foot-high fence to be installed at the northwest corner of the house to the north lot line, and then continue east as submitted. So the issuance of the building permit referenced the variance as it was granted by the board. Despite the applicant submitted a drawing that maybe didn't reflect that, the language of the permit that was issued echoed what the zoning board had approved, and that was the altered location.
Well, we have that building permit here.
Yes. And just for clarification, when an applicant I wasn't there at the counter when the application was submitted. I don't know who took the application in. I don't know what words were exchanged. I don't know, so often what somebody will say is, oh, I was granted a variance. Okay, great, we look up the variance record, in other words, that a variance was actually granted, so we can reference that as part of the building permit. We do that for any building permit that's issued with a variance. Because the fence then needs to be inspected, whereas other fences that don't require a variance do not need to be inspected, and that's where the issue with the misalignment came up.
And normally, if you don't use a variance within a year, it expires. So the notation on the building permit that Ms. Ivers approved the use of the existing variance got you over the 1 year, it's no longer good, you have to come back and ask again hump. That's what that references. Nothing in this building permit says you can go ahead and build it the way you want and not the way you were granted in the variance. It specifically references the existing variance.
No, in the first paragraph, it says install 4-foot tall dog-eared
Yep.
privacy fence in the front yard off the 3-season enclosure.
Right.
And it says the 4-foot will then go along Winona Boulevard.
Well, I remember very clearly telling you that, and we told you, not just me, that you start at the northwest corner of that 3-season room and you go north to the boundary line, then you go east, and then you come south, and then you tie it back into your house. And you weren't pleased with that because the windows, and we pointed out to you that you can get your privacy with window treatments, but that we did not like the idea of the fence extending out that far towards Winona Boulevard. And that's why we granted you the variance. Now, you want to go from 6 feet to 4 feet? You don't need to do anything about that. We allowed you to go to 6 feet. Doesn't mean you have to go to 6 feet. We didn't allow you to go further west from the sideline of your house. And that's what you did.
Yeah, and again, at that time, I had it that I wanted a 6-foot, okay? And I decided not to do the 6-foot. So then that's when I decided to do this new survey. Now,
Okay,
if the
so
survey,
answer the question that I asked at the beginning. What didn't you understand about what was granted in the variance in 2018?
but I didn't understand that. I figured I could drop the fence down to 4 foot.
Yep, you
Okay.
can.
And lay it out again a second time, which I did. And then at that point, I'm like, yeah, I understand, because I know the time I filled out, when I went for the building permit, and again, there was a question of longevity of the building permit. And I know they asked her, and they said, yeah, the building permit, or the variance would still be honored, okay? So I'm like, okay, so the 6-foot fence. So then I did the survey, I laid the survey out for the 4-foot fence, and then I get a building permit. Now, if there was any question at all, I would have never installed the fence.
Do you remember your neighbors being here in November of 2018?
I remember some of them.
Do you remember that there were a number of them that spoke out against having the fence closer to Winona Boulevard?
There was also a number of them that are.
And some of them who said they wouldn't have a problem with it.
Right.
But the board
But-
didn't
but
approve
again,
it.
I get that. I get that.
Okay, so next question. If we grant you this variance on the variance,
Yeah.
what function do we have? Anybody can come in,
Well, then
get a
don't-
variance from us,
But wait a
build it differently, and then come and say,
Then
oh,
don't-
please forgive
And
me.
don't issue me a building permit, and then after I get it installed, say now there's still a problem with it. I would have never had the.
I don't buy blaming the town for the building permit. You were approved to build the fence in accordance with the variance, not differently from that.
So-
You don't have any variance, and it's against the code,
So what is
what
the-
you've put up.
So what's the reasoning behind a building permit if it's really nothing?
What's the reason behind a zoning code if you come in, get a variance, and then put up a fence along the lines that you want and not along the lines that was granted?
Well, then don't issue a building permit.
Right.
So, sir, or Chairman, may I chime in just for a moment?
Certainly.
It's when the building department issues the building permit, It's with the understanding that the applicant knows what they've been granted and allowed to do by the zoning board. And so it's up to the applicant and any of their contractors to make sure that they're in keeping. And if there's any question about whether something will or won't comply, before it's installed, it needs to be asked. The zoning approval was referenced in the building permit, so it's the applicant's duty to ensure that they understand what that means to them and their project.
I'm
And
going
so-
to explain something to you that I recall from my land use class in law school, which was about 42 years ago, 43 years ago perhaps. It was a suburb in Syracuse where a contractor got a building variance to build a apartment complex closer to the lot line. He was given a specific distance that he could build within. He exceeded the distance. The zoning board said, move the building. The Court of Appeals said, the zoning board's within its discretion, move the building. As I look at the facts of that case and look at this, seems to me it's the same principle.
So back in 2018, when I had asked for my original layout, at that same time, the people that I were dealing with, the same people that I dealt with this time asking for this building permit, stopped me right
Look,
there.
I'm not interested in the building permit.
No.
You
wait,
came
wait
in
a
front
second.
of the zoning
Can I-
board.
Can I finish? Can I finish? When they saw what my layout was, they said, no, you can't do it that way. You need to ask for a variance. Right then and there,
In 2018.
in 2018.
Yes. And you
So-
got
so
one.
Again, like, I'm not a subject matter expert on zoning board laws and where this goes. What I did was I resubmitted another proposal.
Did you resubmit it to the zoning board? Did you
Not-
ask
not to the
whether
zoning-
that,
not
did you ask whether your new proposal would fly in the face of the variance that you were granted that you knew you needed to have to put up the fence?
Well, again, at the same time, I did the same thing this time that I did the last time.
No, you didn't.
And the last time they said you had to ask for a variance. So like, if I lay it out and I show where the fence is gonna go, then there should be no reason why I get a building permit.
You're missing the whole point. In 2018, when you wanted to put a fence at an angle that ran parallel to Winona Boulevard, you were told you needed to get a variance.
Right.
You came in front of us.
Right.
We had a lengthy discussion. Some of your neighbors didn't want it, others were okay with it. We, collectively, the Zoning Board of Appeals, granted you a variance for a different layout than what you had requested. 2.5 years later, you go back to your original layout and don't ask for a variance and seemingly forgot completely
No,
everything
I
that
didn't-
took place
I
in
didn't
November.
forget. I did not forget. I knew.
Well, then you ignored it.
No, I didn't ignore it. Originally.
Then what did you do?
Originally, I asked for a 6-foot fence, and that's
Yes.
why I didn't move forward with it, because I have a 3-season room, and that 6-foot fence would divide.
Did the
not a-
board have a problem with the 6-foot fence in 2018?
Yeah, the way it was originally laid out, yes.
Yes, we did. Not because of the height, but because of how you wanted to lay it out in relation to Winona Boulevard. That's why the variance that we granted to you expressly said
From the northwest corner.
northwest corner. I can't find it here on. Oh, yes. Upon the request by the 6-foot-high fence be installed at the northwest corner of the house to the north lot line and then continue east as submitted. That was the variance that we granted.
Yeah,
And you wanted to run it down along Winona Boulevard. We didn't have a discussion about whether the fence had to be 4 feet or 6 feet from the northwest corner of the house.
right.
We had a discussion about how it was going to run along Winona Boulevard. That's what the focus of our discussion was that evening. And we, collectively, in the variance, told you, you're gonna go from the northwest corner of the house to the north lot line. That's not what you did.
No, because
And that's the huge problem, in case you can't tell, that I have with your application tonight.
Excuse me, Chairman, just for clarification, I want to make sure that the board and also anybody watching at home or in the audience understands, is that the 4-foot height and the type of fence that was installed does not comply with the code either. So the type, the linear footage, and the height all exceed the code provisions for front yard fencing.
I hadn't gotten to that yet.
Yeah, so, and I just want to make sure that that's clear. So the applicant's reduction from 6 to 4 feet didn't alleviate any aspect of the code thresholds that would need to be met. So if he modified all of the, if he cut it down to 32 linear feet and it was picket-style fence and it was 3.5 feet in height, then no change he wouldn't have to come back to this board. Or could install it with just the building permit. And as far as building staff, when they are told that they've been granted a variance, they reference the variance and they take an applicant at their word. And so, as a result of this experience, we're actually no longer going to be doing that. Unfortunately, applicants are not going to be taken at their word, and we have to then go back and review every application to make sure that it matches what was granted.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
So I just want to ask for clarification. So when you had submitted the new design for the building permit, are you saying that you thought that the 2018 variance wasn't involved because it was a new design that you had submitted?
no, I knew it was involved, but again, when I originally submitted it, and again, it's marked, it says 6-foot fence off the northwest corner. Now, I have a 3-season room back there. So if I put a 6-foot fence off that corner, half the 3-season room would be like open to Winona Boulevard again. And then the other half, I'd have this 6-foot fence running right down the middle of the 3-season room, right off that corner.
Right, but what I was asking it because it sounded like earlier you had said that as if because a new design was presented and because time had elapsed that you thought that if you had needed a variance for this design, you would have been told prior to receiving the building permit when you presented the design to the board.
Correct.
And so because of that, you're saying that is the reason why you didn't think that a variance was needed because you didn't think that the 2018 variance still stood because of the time change in the new design?
I thought when I handed in this new design at 4 foot, that area that originally was said that I couldn't do, that if I did it by 4 foot, that it'd be okay to do it that way, because I'd lowered it from, the 6 foot. So that's why I submitted the new proposal. I mean, I wasn't trying to originally, I had my heart set on a 6 foot. And again, this whole educational thing about a corner lot, and all the do's and don'ts. But at that time, I sat there and I'm like, yeah, there was a suggestion about putting film on my windows. And I do remember that. And I did look into that. But the thing is if I'm sitting out there at night and I turn the light on, everybody can still see me in that room. Like, there's no privacy. And, again, I wanted a little bit of privacy. And that's why I thought if I did it to 4 feet and then I planted like shrubs or, whatever around that fence and sort of made that fence disappear from the road, then I'd make my 4 foot or my 6 foot that I originally wanted and everything would be, okay. The neighbors wouldn't see a fence anymore,
So then you thought this new design was within the variance, or that you wouldn't need a variance because it was in the code?
I thought it was okay because again, I submitted my proposal and I got a building permit. And that's what I built the fence off of. I would, again, I'm not trying to backdoor this situation. I thought that when they looked at the building permit and they issued me the building permit saying 4 foot here and there, that part was finally okay. It met what the town wanted and met what I wanted.
Okay,
And
but you're
that's all.
understanding that the confusion is that it in reality, the question was, so you have a variance for this design, and you thought you didn't need one, but in reality, you'd already gotten it because those same rules still applied, even if the design changed.
Well, I honestly thought that, like in the proposal part, that when I asked for 4 foot, and then I received that building permit, that gave me the green light to go ahead and build the fence,
Okay,
and that's what I did.
okay. I don't have any further questions.
Anyone else on the board?
What
In your
about,
building permit,
can I,
does it reference that, it was approved, the use of existing variance?
What, say that again?
On a building permit that I have, down towards, right after, ZBA granted approval in 2018, Kerry Ivers approved the use of existing variance on 4/19/2021.
Yes.
So that, they would go back to the original variances with the line.
Well, what it says is the original was granted for 6 foot high fence in the side and the front yard on the corner lot. So that was along the side lot, and then it came across what's known as my backyard. So that 6 foot was already okayed with the original variance. But if you read in the front, or the first paragraph, it says install 4 foot tall privacy fence off my 3-season room, and then a 4 foot fence along Winona Boulevard. And that's, when I obtained this and it's signed by the inspector, I'm like, okay, I must meet the needs. And that's, that was issued back in April, and I had the fence installed in August. And then I get it installed, and then I find out I'm in code variance because I didn't honor the 2018. And I'm like, well, I switched it up. I changed that one portion to a 4 foot high fence, and I thought it would meet the needs. And that's why I thought the building permit was signed off.
okay, but what about the fact that the original variance request was also for exceeding the total length? We gave it back to you, so where it doesn't, now you just put it back in exceeding the permitted length. Didn't you think by putting it back where you originally asked for it?
No, I
It was
thought,
in violation.
like originally, I thought it was because of the 6 foot high.
It very clearly says because of the length. That's one of 4 conditions that were approved. Not one condition, there were 4. You've exceeded 3, or violated 3 of them, or all 4 of them, actually. So, you don't think the changes you made?
Well, again, like I made those changes. I mean, if someone's, again, I'm not an expert on these changes. Like originally, and again, there was a couple of years that went by, but originally when I submitted it, I asked for that 4 foot high fence along that same area. Now, again, if I went back to the original, I asked for that. Immediately said, no, you can't do that. You have to ask for a variance. But this time when I submitted it, and they pulled up, it's even noted in there, they pulled up the original variance. Then don't give me a building permit, and I won't put the fence up.
May I point out for the board's records that a decision letter was mailed to the applicant? And so when we're referencing in the building permit, the variance that was granted in 2018 is being allowed to be used, the applicant has the decision letter that states the conditions upon which the board granted the variance. And again, the applicant had both of those pieces of information to know where the alignment was, and that 4 feet is still exceeding the threshold for the code. The code states in the front yard it's 3.5. So any height over 3.5 needed a variance, including 4 feet.
Any other comments from any other members of the board? Anything else you wish to say?
No.
we'll open it up to public input. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Step right up.
One at a time or all?
Yep, one at a time.
Hi, my name is Dean Loria. I live at 150 Winona Boulevard. Paint a picture, my front yard is his backyard.
Uh-huh.
All right?
So you're immediately north of his, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. I'm here to say that since Tim moved in, everything he's done has been an improvement to the neighborhood. I know I read some of the comments, and I don't understand them because I'll be sitting there in my front yard, his backyard, and people will walk by and comment about how beautiful the fence is. I'm stating that everything he's done to his house since moved in, siding, roofing, windows, the whole 9 yards, it looks beautiful. Everybody appreciates it. I'm sorry that, well, I'm not sorry, that a few people have a problem with the height or where it is, but it's absolutely gorgeous. Has anybody here on this board seen it, other than the pictures?
3 times.
Yeah, it's hot. It's a good-looking fence.
The fence looks fine. I don't have a problem with the design of the fence or the way it looks. I have a problem with where it is. Because he came and got permission. We didn't give him permission to put it where he's put it. And he went ahead and put it there anyway. And what credibility will this board have if we say, that's okay? The neighbors like it, so it's fine. We don't need a zoning board then. We just put things up to a referendum in the neighborhood. If the neighbors vote and say it's okay, then the heck with what the zoning code says. If the neighbors don't say it's okay, then you can't have it. That's not the way it works. Zoning regulates the use of property for the benefit of the town. The town puts in the requirements to preserve order and tranquility. And our job is to balance a homeowner's needs on the one hand and the interests of the town and the neighborhood on the other. We had a hearing just like this.
I was here.
Yes. And we went through that entire balancing, and we arrived at a balance. And had he put that fence up where we'd told him he could, there'd be no need for this hearing tonight.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. There's also a gray area of, he's actually improved the cosmetics of that area. People walk by and they appreciate what he's done.
If he wanted to change it, he could have come back and said, hey, can we reconsider this?
It sounds like he did, and I get it. You read it.
He didn't
back.
come here.
He did ask for the variance, though.
No, he asked for a building permit and was granted a building permit to construct a fence in accordance with the variance we had granted.
By the town.
A building permit by the town and a variance that was granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Yes. Okay. Anyone else want to speak in favor of this application? Step right up.
Good evening. My name is Melanie Loria, and I also live at 150 Winona Boulevard, and the fence is along we call it our side yard, and I approve of it as well. But I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, why is there a specification where why does the fence need to be a certain distance from that sidewalk or from Winona Boulevard?
Because under a corner lot, that portion of his lot is his front yard. And the zoning ordinance only allows for 3.5-foot fencing of a certain type, an open type, with for a certain distance in a front yard. Once you get to the back of the rear foundation line of the house, you can put up a 6-foot solid fence. That's not a problem. The purpose behind it, at least in part, is to deter walling off sections of the town, which the town board apparently, in enacting the ordinance, determined that 6-foot fences in front of residential structures is not something that they found to be pleasing. So our job is to balance that determination of the town board, as expressed in the zoning ordinance, with the homeowner's need to have with a practical hardship that they present, and we recognize that. You know, we've had 2 corner lots already here tonight where we've had the same discussion about what the difference is because of the way the lot is configured and what the ordinance says about corner lots and how it's determined. The problem, what we told him he could do, was go from the northwest corner over to the lot line that you share, and then go east from there. He's come way closer to Winona, even with the fence that separates your 2 properties, because that was to be lined up with the northwest corner of the house. That's the reference point from which the zoning ordinance was granted. And, the problem I have has nothing to do with the way the fence looks. It's that it's not where we approved it, and we gave consideration to where he wanted it, and we struck the balance. And this fence flies right in the face of the balance we struck. That's the problem.
Okay, I
Okay?
understand.
And I'm not saying that, he's a bad person or he hasn't kept up his lot, but he didn't comport with what we told him he could do. And now he's asking us to say, that's okay, never mind.
I understand both sides. I know you were trying to compromise originally.
We
Right.
did.
Because you're trying to come up with a happy solution for both parties. I get that. And I'm understanding that I feel like our neighbor Tim might have been confused by the process, thinking that if he went to get the permit, that was okay and that everybody else was okay with that. So I see it as a mistake. And my question is, now that it is that way, and he's a great neighbor, and I don't think he intended to just do what he wanted, knowing that it was wrong. I think he actually thought that it was approved. I don't think he understand that he was supposed to come here and ask for another variance. I'm just saying that's how I see it. And I'm saying that we as neighbors, we're okay with that. We're just letting you know we're here. It looks great. We're sorry that this happened, but I think it was just an honest mistake.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak in favor of the application? Step right up, sir.
Hello, my name is Arthur McNeil. I live at 159 Winona Boulevard. I've been there 44 years. I love it, and I'm not moving.
Good.
And that man over there did a fantastic job. He keeps his house up, his yard up, his garden up. Matter of fact, he's been there maybe, how long you been there, Tim? 5 years. This is the first year I talked to him. And let me tell you, the guy is great. The fence is beautiful. My kitchen windows open to the fence. My dining room windows open to the fence. Doesn't bother my wife or me.
Where do you live in relation to his property? Are you on the west side of Winona or the east side?
My house, behind me I got the Rocky Coast and the zoo.
So you're on the west side?
Yes,
Okay. You're across the street from him?
I'm across the street.
Okay.
And I believe it was just a complete mistake. But the mistake turned out great to me.
Okay.
I have no complaints.
All right.
Right.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Step right up, sir.
Good evening.
Evening.
I'm Marty James. I live at 151 Winona on the west side.
Okay.
Front of my house, kind of diagonally look out, we see the back of the property and the side fence. And we think, my wife and I, we think it looks great. It looks, aesthetically it looks nice. I understand what the board, what you approved. It feels to me like there was a genuine mistake here. And I know Tim, and I don't think he would deliberately try to go beyond things here, and change things deliberately. So that's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else here to speak in favor of this application?
Good evening. My name is Margaret Decker, and I live at 165 Winona Boulevard.
Next door to the last gentleman.
2 doors down.
2 doors down. Okay.
First time before the board. My kitchen window looks directly out at Tim's house. And until that fence was put up, it was a fishbowl. I could see everything, and I was uncomfortable, looking out at the street. Now, I can tell you, it's a beautiful fence. It allows him some privacy. It gives the other neighbors some privacy. And it doesn't obstruct the view. It's a nice view. It's a beautiful fence, and I don't know where the misunderstanding lays, but I can tell you that I have no objections to the fence, and
Okay.
I'm actually for it.
All right, thank you. Anyone else here that wishes to speak in favor of the application? Anyone wish to speak in opposition to the application? Step right up.
I am Mary Despirito, 105 Winona Boulevard. It's a lovely fence, well-constructed. My issue is it sets a precedent. And any corner lot on the east side of Winona Boulevard could submit a similar request to the board. And what would prevent the 1.5 mile long Winona Boulevard from having a wall of fences? So I feel that the character and charm of our neighborhood is changing by having such a fence.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition to the application? Anyone want to talk to us about fences, corner lots, anything of that nature? Seeing none, does the applicant wish to address the board any further? Okay, then we'll close the hearing with respect to this matter, and the board will be in recess until 8 o'clock. had neglected to read into the record a couple of letters that had been received with respect to applications. The first letter pertained to the first application with 1786 Portland Avenue. It's from Christopher Joyce at 8 Ridgeport Drive, and she's in favor of allowing the homeowner to put up a 6-foot fence in the entire area that he's was requesting. With respect to the case concerning Coldwood Drive, there was a letter that the board received from Joseph DeSpirito at 115 Winona Boulevard, and that was opposed to the application. And that was also signed by Mary DeSpirito at 105 Winona Boulevard, Nancy Nardoz at 3 Coldwood Drive, Kathleen Lee, 298 Winona Boulevard, Prudence Schmidt, 131 Winona Boulevard, Angelo Mascaro, 43 Poppy Street, John Kleehammer, 196 Schofield Road, and Mary Jane Kleehammer at 196 Schofield Road. And then there was a second letter that was submitted by, I believe it was the same gentleman, Joseph DeSpirito, and that letter also had signatures in opposition from, actually I think those are some of the same people who signed the first one. I think there's 2 different letters. Oh, that's a letter from 2018. So they resubmitted the 2018 letter and submitted a new one in 2021. Yes, that's correct. So, we are back. Is the applicant pertaining to 1786 Portland Avenue present? Yep. I'm just checking to see how we're going to proceed. 4 Perigo Street. So we're going to go in the order that they appear on the agenda. That doesn't happen very often. I think it happened last month because nobody was. Yes, it did, Jim. Because nobody was here, right? Flip side. All right. The first application before the board tonight is the application pertaining to 1786 Portland Avenue. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does anyone wish to make a motion with respect to this application?
I'll make a motion that we grant the request as presented by the applicant based on the following findings of fact. Change to the character of the neighborhood. He does have a unique property on a corner lot, and putting a fence up wouldn't necessarily preclude him from doing that, so he has the opportunity to block out and have the fence wrap around his house and giving him some privacy. Alternatives, I mean, he could put a smaller fence up, however, it wouldn't necessarily give him the privacy that he's looking for. It's not a substantial request. There's many 6-foot fences around on corner lots in Arundecoit. There's no environmental impacts or environmental adverse impacts regarding the fence. It is a self-created variance, but that shouldn't impact his ability to put in a fence. And based on that, I suggest that we grant the request.
So I'll second it.
I would also note that the 6-foot fence that the applicant is proposing begins at the southwest corner of the house and extends directly south. It does not extend west to Portland Avenue and then goes along what the town denominates as his side yard boundary, that the way it's laid out and used is actually his back line. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 5 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. 2 members of the board are absent. Next item is the application pertaining to 4 Perigo Street. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does anyone wish to make a motion with respect to this application?
I'll make a motion that we grant the request at 4 Perigo Street based on the following findings of fact. As far as changing the character of the neighborhood, it's not a major change. They're just looking to add a few extra feet to their little porch. As far as support, they've received 2 letters of support from neighbors in favor of granting the request. Like I said, it's not a substantial request. There's really no environmental impacts. They're just trying to increase the surface area so they can enjoy the view and their company. As far as self-created, like I said earlier, it is self-created, but it shouldn't preclude them from, there shouldn't be any impact on the environment or their neighbors. They're just trying to increase the surface size so they can enjoy fellowship with neighbors and family.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 5 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. 2 members of the board remain absent. Next item is the application pertaining to 8 Coalwood Drive. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes.
Chairman, if I could just
Certainly.
chime in, I just want to make clear that this application before the board this evening is a new area variance application and should be considered on its, merits as opposed, in applying the standard, considering the benefit to the applicant if its variance is granted as weighted against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or the community and the 5 factors that are always applied. There was some discussion here about the previously issued variance, and again, at that time, the same analysis was applied that would be applied to this request as well.
Does anyone wish to make a motion with respect to this application? I'll make a motion that we deny the variance based on the following findings of fact. Extending the fence to the Winona Boulevard side of the house will change the neighborhood character by having fencing that is close to the street that is not otherwise generally prevailing in the neighborhood. The alternatives that do not require a variance would not meet the applicant's interest in privacy, and therefore they're not feasible. It is a substantial request. The applicant is asking to have solid fencing as opposed to the code requirement of picket type open fencing. He's exceeding the linear limitations, and the effect on the physical or environmental conditions, if granted, would be that it walls off a portion of what, as you drive down Winona, is perceived as a front yard. The situation is self-created. It is self-created by virtue of the fact that the applicant previously came before the board. The board weighed the same factors that we're weighing tonight. The board determined then that the applicant's needs balanced against the community's interest and the provisions of the code would be served by a fence extending from the northwest corner of the house to the north side. And the only thing that is different tonight than what was different 3 years ago is that the fence is now installed. Does anyone wish to second that motion?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 5 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. 2 members of the board remain absent.
Did we receive a copy of the minutes from the previous meeting?
No,
I-
we did not.
Yeah, I think Michelle indicated that she was gonna be caught up with minutes in time for next month's meeting, and we'll have those ready for you in your packet, so you are not missing them. You did
That'll
not yet
give us
receive them.
something to look forward to.
Yes, it will. Some enjoyable reading.
So having concluded the items on our agenda, we are adjourned.